this fabrication of a God that rose from the dead.
Isn't this all a little too convenient? Paradise, forgiveness, Christ, like it all just seems too convenient. How can it possibly be true? This is just what we want to believe. This is the way that we. If someone were to create the religion of Christianity, they would construct it in this fashion. I had my response, but I'm curious as to what yours is, and maybe you'll believe it coming from you.
Yeah, a little too convenient to be persecuted and give up your life in Nigeria. A little too convenient to say I have to give up my will for your will, O Lord. A little too convenient because I have to humble myself and put the other before myself. A little too convenient because Romans talks about how I even have to look at my enemy and say, that person's even better than I am. I mean, talk about conveniency. All the earliest Christians gave up property, finances, homes, and then their very lives. So I would say your atheist friend is a little too convenient for him, because if there is no God, then I get to live for myself, be myself and I get to live to make as much money as I like and keep it for me. I mean, look, we're just on a rock flying through outer space, and we're all accidents, so why not live just totally hedonistically and selfishly? And so I'm not accountable to any kind of God. So that sounds a little more convenient to me, and a little easier.
When y'all talk to all these atheists and all these different other people with different beliefs, I sometimes wonder, why are y'all here and why are y'all talking? Is God leading you? Is God trying to tug at your heart to say, come my way? Because I'm like, well, if you're truly atheist, why are you showing up? Why are you having a conversation? And I know everyone has different reasons why, but that question pops up in my head.
For us, I personally believe if you come to me and say, I'm a Christian, but I don't share my faith, I would respond with, okay, I just don't know what you mean by when you say you're a Christian. I just don't know what you mean. Because the definition of a Christian in Scripture is, I call you in only to send you out. It starts right over Exodus 3. You can go all the way back to Exodus 3. Moses is called into the burning bush, has an encounter with God, is now sent out to take the Israelites out of captivity. So every Christian should be sharing their faith. And so that's what really motivates us, where it's Christ clearly calls for it, but then also it's because we have a burning love for other people who we believe are truly lost. And I believe the quickest way to save the world is by teaching people what the gospel truly is. I don't even think that there's a close second. Any type of behavioral model,
In the debate above, the two speakers present the argument that Christianity is psychologically convenient and therefore likely false, and I find this argument rhetorically appealing but logically weak. The claim assumes that desirability and falsity are correlated, yet offers no principled reason why this should be so. Many truths, justice, dignity, hope, are deeply desired, yet not therefore illusions. The argument commits a genetic fallacy by reducing truth claims to psychological origins rather than addressing their evidential merit. A belief system centered on self-denial, persecution, and moral inversion of power runs counter to human instincts. If Christianity were engineered for comfort, it is difficult to explain its historical pattern of martyrdom and ethical demands. The evidence suggests not a religion of convenience, but one of costly commitment. A worldview without ultimate accountability removes moral cost from selfishness. Pleasure, autonomy, and self-interest become rational strategies rather than moral failures. If convenience is the criterion for falsity, atheistic hedonism appears far more suspect. The argument exposes a double standard in applying the convenience test selectively. This climactic section dismantles the too convenient to be true objection by turning it inward. Christianity's central claims impose sacrifice, accountability, and moral restraint, hardly hallmarks of an invented comfort system. By contrast, a godless universe offers existential ease, no judgment, no ultimate responsibility, and no demand beyond desire. The debate reveals that the question is not whether a belief is comforting, but whether it is true, and whether one is willing to bear the cost of that truth. Let us now continue with the debate or discussion.
And there have been periods in my time where I disliked Christians because they didn't follow my example of what was right versus wrong. Mm-hmm. There are some of them that took their beliefs as higher than letting something go, like sin or homosexuality. They wouldn't reason why someone did something. They would say, oh, that's wrong, call it out. Mm-hmm. As for me, I try and find ways to forgive everyone and not judge them, and try and figure out a way, how could they fix their mistakes without feeling bad about them?
Okay, I don't think you can live out what you just said. If I go up to her and start slaughtering her with racial slurs, are you really not going to judge and analyze and say, Cliff, for you to slur her with racist epithets is really wrong? Are you trying to tell me that you're going to kick back and say, oh, well, whatever?
I mean, I feel like you're just kind of jumping at my point to discredit any value it has.
No, I think you're getting embarrassed right now. And I don't blame you. Because you've embraced a very prevalent worldview in our culture, which is just don't judge anybody. Guys, you have to judge. Every time you judge a racist, you're judging. Every time you judge a rapist, you're judging. Every time you support a law for equal housing opportunity, you're judging. You're saying, if you differentiate between people of different races when it comes to renting your house, we're going to pass a law that's not going to let you do that anymore. It's called equal housing opportunity. That's a judgment call, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you judge and I judge.
Yes, I do judge.
Good.
That was my goal, is to eventually not judge, find ways so everyone can be righteous. And I personally think that that there's a way to help someone out without judging them.
Okay, now let's define what does it mean to judge. For me to judge her does not mean I am superior to you, you're a loser, I'm a really good guy. That's the judgmentalism that Christ attacks in Matthew 7:1 when he says, judge not, lest ye be judged. But I can promise you, if she is stealing her wallet, stealing her computer, I'm going to look her in the face and say, ma'am, it is wrong for you to steal her computer. Not because I'm better than you, but because there's a moral absolute that says you got to respect her, and that's going to carry into respecting her property, which means you're not going to steal her wallet, her purse, and you're not going to steal her computer. Because if you do, that's wrong. That's good judging, as opposed to, I'm better, I'm the one who creates right and wrong, and I don't think you should steal because I'm a great guy. That's the judgmentalism that Christ attacked.
The latter judgment is just preaching about treating people with respect, and that's really important, and making sure that people do so, and obviously we dislike when someone doesn't.
Which means disrespecting a human being is wrong, isn't it? That's a judgment call I just made, right? And you join me in that judgment.
In the debate above, the two speakers present the claim that moral goodness consists in forgiveness without judgment, and I find this argument emotionally appealing but logically incomplete. The speaker positions not judging anyone as a higher moral stance, implicitly criticizing Christians who label actions as right or wrong. However, this position quietly assumes that judging is itself morally wrong, which is already a moral judgment. The worldview being expressed attempts to occupy moral high ground while denying the legitimacy of moral evaluation, creating an unresolved tension between moral intuition and moral authority. The challenge presented exposes a practical contradiction. Moral outrage toward racism presupposes moral judgment. The refusal to judge collapses under real-world scenarios involving injustice. The discomfort shown by the interlocutor is not merely emotional embarrassment, but philosophical pressure, revealing that moral discernment is unavoidable. A worldview that denies judgment cannot coherently condemn evil. Once judgment is acknowledged as inevitable, the real question shifts from whether we judge to why we judge. Laws, ethics, and human rights all rest on moral distinctions. The denial of judgment is not moral humility, but moral confusion. Without an objective grounding, judgments become arbitrary expressions of preference rather than obligations rooted in truth. The opening segment of this debate exposes a central moral contradiction in contemporary culture. The demand to not judge is itself a moral judgment masquerading as tolerance. Human beings cannot escape moral evaluation without abandoning justice, law, and accountability. The attempt to forgive without judging dissolves into incoherence when confronted with real harm. This section establishes the groundwork for the broader debate by showing that moral language requires a moral foundation, and that foundation cannot be avoided without collapsing moral reasoning itself.
Right? Yes. Disrespecting a person is wrong. Right. Good, we agree.
But that, well, I guess we agree.
How about that? All right.
I didn't come here to like change minds. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. And
good. Well, I'm glad you did get your thoughts out there, but I can promise you I am here to persuade every single one of you to put your faith in Christ. Why? Because I'm convinced He's the truth. I do not mean I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in the same way that to disrespect her is wrong, so to put my faith ultimately in some other option other than Christ is a fatal mistake, because He is the truth.
In the debate above, the speaker distinguishes between moral judgment and moral arrogance, and I find this distinction philosophically and textually sound. The claim clarifies a widespread misunderstanding of Jesus' words. Judge not does not prohibit moral evaluation. It condemns self-righteous superiority. Moral discernment grounded in respect for human dignity differs fundamentally from declaring oneself morally superior. This distinction preserves moral accountability while rejecting hypocrisy. By grounding moral judgment in an external standard rather than personal superiority, the argument avoids moral relativism. If right and wrong are merely personal creations, condemnation of injustice loses force. A moral absolute allows judgment to function as protection for the vulnerable rather than a tool of domination. The immediate consensus that disrespecting a human being is wrong exposes an underlying moral realism. Such agreement is difficult to explain if morality is merely subjective or socially constructed. The instinctive recognition of human dignity suggests a moral law that precedes personal opinion. This section sharpens the debate by correcting a false dichotomy between judgment and compassion. Moral judgment grounded in objective standards is not cruelty. It is the necessary condition for justice. The rejection of judgmentalism does not require the rejection of truth. By distinguishing arrogance from accountability, this part reinforces the claim that moral clarity and humility are not enemies but allies.
Make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's for believing in the Bible, believing in Christianity, and that Christ is love, and there's also righteous judgment, that you would have to not believe in those things to...
All right, so you said you drifted away from Christianity.
Yeah, no.
Why did you do that? What was the reason?
No. I just confused my wording. I'm sorry, I'm pretty slow with talking to people. What I meant was, I'm very happy that you're trying to reach out to people and get them to see the light.
So are you a follower of Christ?
No.
Okay, why? What's a better option? What if you put your faith in Christ that is more credible than Christ?
A better option. I'm just trying to do what y'all do in my own way.
Okay, then what is the truth?
I find it hard when I read the Bible and to believe that this whole mystical system is true and good, and relayed perfectly. And it makes it hard for me to treat people with respect, to treat Christians with respect.
Because of what?
Because I can't understand the Bible. And so when I feel a pressure to understand the Bible and to believe in Christianity, then I can take that confusion out on Christians, and I just find that hard.
All right, but I got good news for you. Mark Twain said a lot of dumb things, I'm convinced, but he was spot on when he said, it's not the parts of the Bible I don't understand that disturb me. It's the parts of the Bible that I do understand that disturb me. You're right, sir. There are a lot of difficult parts of the Bible I don't understand. So you and I are very similar, okay? But the Bible is all too clear on the basics. There's one God who's the creator. He revealed himself by becoming man in Jesus. He lived a sinless life. Then he bled and died on a cross to pay the penalty for our wrongdoing. 3 days later, he rose from the dead. He ascended to heaven, and he calls you and me to put our faith and trust in him. And he's coming back a second time, and there's going to be a day of judgment. There's going to be a heaven and a hell. And he calls you and me to put our faith in him. Who is more reliable than Jesus? Why would I choose to put my faith in someone or something other than Jesus, in light of all the evidence that points to his reliability?
I think you just trust him more than I do. I think I don't need to have the answer, and that's just what separates you from I. But it's not a matter of morality. I don't think my ideal is what you should follow, but I just simply can't put myself exactly in your shoes to follow Christ.
Okay.
And believe in the Bible.
The problem is, you can say, I don't know exactly whom I'm putting my trust in. You can't be as articulate as you are and not be a pretty motivated person. So all you got to do is follow your motives, follow your ambitions back to the basic core. That's your God. That's your idol.
Right.
Maybe it's money. Maybe it's a career. Maybe it's a high GPA.
Yeah.
Maybe it's pleasure. I don't know. That's what you got to answer that for yourself, the same way I got to answer it for myself. But what I do know is, you ain't an accident. That dress didn't come together this morning by accident. You're motivated. You're very handsome. You're very articulate. So you're a pretty motivated guy, which means you're living for someone or something. You have your faith in someone or something. Something's worth the effort, sucking wind and doing all the work that you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have a God or gods, you have an idol or idols, the same way I have a God, Jesus Christ. So please work through, who is my God? In other words, what inspires me? What am I awestruck by? Who writes the purpose and meaning and direction of my life? That's your God. That's your idol. It can be money, sex, pleasure, career, family, democracy, politics, lots of different options. But you've got something or someone that is your idol, your God. And I'm saying, guess what? I think Jesus Christ is more reliable than the option that you're choosing. And that evidence is a sinless life, amazing ethical teachings, a death on a cross where he forgives his enemies, and then a resurrection from the dead.
But I don't really.
In the debate above, the speaker argues that faith in Christ is grounded in truth rather than personal superiority, and I find this clarification intellectually necessary. The argument reframes faith not as emotional preference or tribal loyalty, but as a rational commitment to what one perceives as most reliable. By explicitly rejecting claims of moral or intellectual superiority, the speaker positions belief as a response to truth claims, not ego. This distinction challenges the common assumption that religious faith is merely subjective sentiment. The assertion, I don't need to have the answer, appears humble, yet it masks an unexamined commitment. Human action always flows from ultimate concerns: ambition, pleasure, success, or meaning. To deny having a God is not to escape faith, but to relocate it. The argument exposes neutrality as an illusion rather than a position. The reasoning does not accuse, but diagnoses. Motivation implies devotion. Devotion implies faith. The real dispute is not between belief and unbelief, but between rival objects of trust. By placing Christ alongside other ultimate commitments, the argument invites comparison rather than coercion, asking which foundation can truly bear the weight of meaning, morality, and hope. This section dismantles the myth of religious neutrality by exposing faith as an inescapable human condition. Whether acknowledged or not, every person entrusts their life to something they deem worthy. The debate reframes Christianity not as a leap into irrationality, but as a reasoned judgment about reliability. Faith is not the absence of evidence, but a response to it, directed toward what one believes can ultimately sustain truth, purpose, and moral obligation. Let us now continue with the debate or discussion.
Inherently, how can our will be free if God is creating the confines of what free will is? Does that make sense?
What are the confines of free will?
Having like a free choice, having being able to make your own choices.
Yeah.
But if
That's
God
right.
is creating the idea of free will, how can that be free?
God, who's all-powerful, chooses to limit his power by giving us a free will. God cannot give me a free will, and every time I haul back to slap her in the face, he puts plexiglass here, and my hand bounces off the plexiglass and I never can hit her. No, if he gives me free will, I can take out my wallet and give her money to buy a dinner, or I can slap her with his hand. Why? Because God, who's all-powerful, has chosen to partially limit his power by giving me a free will. Now, what's the problem with that?
I guess my issue with that is that if God is creating your free will and inherently giving you the right to make your own decisions,
Yes.
and he's omnipotent, he's the creator of all things,
Remember, he limited his power by giving you a free will. Keep going.
but by giving me a free will,
Yeah?
how is that a limit of power if he's creating what free will is?
God created me to love her and respect her, but because I have a free will, I can slap her. God did not create me to have a racist attitude towards this gentleman, but because I have a free will, I can have a racist attitude towards this gentleman. It's not God who makes me have a racist attitude towards him, it's me. God did not create this shirt. People did. In other words, God gave us the gift of creativity. We can be creative. And I can creatively try and help him with his studies so he gets a better grade on his final exam, or I can choose to manipulate him and use him, lie to him, and hurt him. I can really create good. I can really create evil. Why? Because God gave me that ability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but by God giving you the ability, doesn't he create the construct of what creativity and all those things are?
No. If God gives me free will, he is seriously limiting his power and giving me the gift of creativity. And so I can create a good shirt, I can create a good business, and give this man a job so he can earn money to pay for his livelihood and his family. Or I can steal from him, rip him off blind, because I'm a stinking son of a gun. Does that make any sense?
I understand where you're coming from. I guess the part where I struggle is that God, I know he's limiting his power, but I don't see how he is, because he is the creator of the idea of free will. Meaning that it may be a delusion of free will. I just don't see how it is, because he's creating what free will is.
Look, he created me with 2 legs, not 3 or 4 or 5. So obviously I don't have 3 legs. I've got 2 legs because God chose to create me that way. So what's the problem with that?
There's no problem with that. But
Well, God gave me free will. Now I'm responsible for what I choose because I've got free will. And that's why there's going to be a day of judgment when God holds me responsible for the decisions I've made. What's the problem with that?
I guess it seems contradictory.
Where's the contradiction?
God is creating what free will is. He's creating the idea, just like he made your 2 legs.
Yes.
He's creating the ideals and the idea of free will.
Yeah?
It's under his creation and under his control.
No, it's not under his control. He gave us the gift, but he's not controlling the gift. He gave you a mind and a will. You control the gift.
But if he gave you your mind and your will, how can you control it?
Because along with a mind, he gave you a will, which means you're going to choose to dabble in the irrational and to make no sense, or you're going to choose to use your brain in a responsible, rational way to get in touch with truth, with reality. It's your call. That's why he's going to judge you. That's why he's going to judge me. Because you really make up your mind, and I really make up my mind. Now, if you've got a problem with that, here's why I disagree with you. I think you're playing games. If you've got a problem with that, then try and live that out, that you don't have free will. So when she says, I love you, you know, no, she doesn't love me. I'm a hunk, and she finds me sexually attractive, and she has to love me, because it's all a sex drive, it's an instinct. And you can reduce life to that. My experience is, no. She can really love you even if you lose your handsome body. In other words, she can do good for you even when you don't deserve it.
In the debate above, the speakers argue that divine omnipotence is compatible with human free will, and I find this argument conceptually coherent. The claim that God limits his own power by granting freedom reframes omnipotence not as coercive control, but as intentional restraint. Freedom that cannot choose evil is not freedom at all. The argument preserves moral responsibility by grounding choice in genuine alternatives rather than illusion. Denying free will may sound philosophically cautious, but it collapses under lived experience. Love, responsibility, guilt, and praise all presuppose freedom. A worldview that cannot be lived without contradiction forfeits its credibility, regardless of its internal logic. Unconditional love defies reduction to instinct or determinism. Moral goodness expressed against self-interest points to agency beyond biological compulsion. These experiences do not prove theology in isolation, but they align naturally with a worldview that affirms free will, moral accountability, and personal meaning. This debate exposes a fundamental divide not between believers and non-believers, but between coherent and incoherent worldviews. Attempts to deny moral judgment, objective truth, faith commitments, or free will ultimately undermine the very reasoning used to defend them. Christianity, as presented here, does not escape hard questions. It confronts them by affirming moral realism, human responsibility, and costly truth. The discussion reveals that the deepest issue is not whether belief is convenient or inherited, but whether it can sustain justice, meaning, and lived human experience without collapsing into contradiction.